Thank you very much, Veronica. I had a cancellation about a week or so ago, and I called up Gary, my sponsor, to see if he knew of any Actually, I wanted Julie to speak, but she turned me down. So I said, "Well, you have any other suggestions?" He said, "Yeah, call Keri." And I said, "Who's Keri?" He said, "You know, you met her when you came out here for the 50th." I said, "Oh, yeah." But I never heard her speak. So I booked her. When I told Tom Yule I was booking Keri, he said, "Oh man, that's going to be fabulous. I gotta listen to that. I'll be there. It's going to be wonderful." So I'm looking forward to hearing Keri speak. Take it away, Keri.
Oh, no pressure there, huh? Okay. Hi, my name is Keri and I'm an Al-Anon. I'm going to flip this around so I don't watch myself talk or I will be too distracted. I really the term emotional sobriety is really a fabulous one. And of course, it never came to my consciousness until this meeting started. And I'd heard about it on Zoom, almost 3 years ago, right? I've been aware of my own emotional immaturity. And that didn't start until a few years after I was in Al-Anon because I just didn't know how crazy I was. I am an AA baby. Dad got sober when I was just before I turned 5 years old. And my sisters and I literally grew up in these rooms. As far as I know, I'm the only one with memories of Dad drinking because I am the oldest. And that was, for me, that memory was Mom was always mad and Dad would come home. And I remember consciously thinking, don't yell at him, he'll leave. And he walked in the door and she yelled at him and he left. And so I blamed her for many years that my dad wasn't home. It took me a very long time to really learn to appreciate my mom, but I'm a daddy's girl. So I wrote myself notes and now I'm going blank. So after Dad got sober, we moved to Laramie, Wyoming. And because there was no Al-Anon in Denver those 50 plus years ago, Mom knew she needed help. And my sisters and I got all bundled up and went to AA meetings. Sometimes we played in the hall and sometimes we, sat in the meetings. I wanted to be a grown up real fast. So I sat in the meetings a lot. And that's kind of how we grew up. Moved to Denver. Probably terrorized a lot of people at York Street AA club in Denver. But I grew up thinking I knew it all because I was in AA, going to AA meetings a lot. I listened to a lot of really ugly stories in AA meetings. The Denver young people on Sunday nights, I think, a speaker meeting. And I just remember thinking, okay, I'm never going to marry one of these. And I have married 3 of these, 3 alcoholics. It's pretty unfailing, my radar in picking alcoholics. So at some point I got active in Alateen. My mom, I was terribly shy as a child and I would hide, read all day, and reading meant escape for me. I just turned my imagination loose, and I was never where I was. I was always someplace else in my head. And reading did that for me. So Mom was afraid I would never come out of my room. So she talked me into going to Alateen by telling me there would be boys there. And there were boys there. I met my first husband was there. He was 4 years older than I was. When we started dating, I was 17 and he was 21. And I was terribly, terribly naive. I believed everything he told me. And, hindsight being 2020, he was not an honest person. I don't think on many levels at all. But, I picked him. I had my own sickness. One of the byproducts of growing up in an alcoholic home, even though, sobriety doesn't necessarily mean sanity. And so things were still pretty loud in our house. There was still a lot of fighting. Mom was pretty easy to tick off. We always knew what was going to set her off. Dad was a little bit, his words are that his temper was treacherous. You could do one stupid thing one day and he, it wouldn't be a big deal. And you could do the same stupid thing the next day and there would be hell to pay. And sometimes it was fast and it hurt. So I came up with a strategy in my childish mind that I would be agreeable with whoever it was I would marry. I wouldn't argue. I wouldn't fight. I would just say yes to her. And my son, who's here, can tell you that's not really what happened. But that was my strategy. The flip side to that is at some point in the back of my head, I had to try to find a way to get what I needed. And that meant being secretive, keeping secrets, being dishonest with the person I was married to. And so that's kind of how I tried to get along and take care of myself to get what I needed. And I'd have a secret agenda and my husband wouldn't know anything about it. Now, my first husband, like I said, my first alcoholic, I didn't really know. I was terribly naive. I didn't really know how full of shit he was. I believed everything he said. At some point, and I did my share. I, broke all the Al-Anon rules and called into work, gave him, he's sick, he can't come in. I don't know how many times I did that. But, part of that was out of fear too, because I needed him to make a living. I was working too, but he was making more money than I was. So I couldn't not call in for him. I had to do what I needed to do to make sure he still had money coming in. At some point though, well, I ended up, pregnant and trying to deal with that with two crazy people in the house. And the night, my husband, by the way, tended bar at a place in Denver. I don't even know if it's still there, but it was in Glendale in a very popular bar. And he was making a lot of money as far as I knew. And so, but he was home late a lot of nights. And the life of a bartender. And I didn't, when I went into labor, I was home alone. And, I'm trying to call him and I can't reach him. And no cell phones in those days, right? Couldn't call him at work. I'm just waiting for him to come home. And I'm on the phone to my midwife and following her directions. And at some point, he came home around 4:00 in the morning, drunk or high, I don't know which. And I'm talking to my midwife and I said, you know what, I'm starting to shake uncontrollably. And if you've been in labor, that's transition. And it's not too long till the baby comes. So Larry finally made it home, piled me in the car, and we got to the hospital and had a baby boy. So came home the next day because I thought I could do anything. Do everything. I was going to muscle through it all. Came home and did what I could. We, Larry and I had an active social life before Morgan was born. And then he continued to have an active social life and I stayed home and took care of the baby. Now, at some point, he got in trouble at work for stealing from the boss. And he was supposed to, rather than go to jail, he chose to join the military. So he went down to Fort Knox in Indiana, in Kentucky for boot camp. And I moved back home with mom and dad because we were living in Indianapolis. And then he came to pick me up when I graduated high school. drove me back to Denver. And so I came back to Indianapolis with a baby boy. I think he was about a year old. And what I hadn't been telling my parents was that I was absolutely miserable living with this man. So we're living with my folks, and my parents are expecting that, my son and I are going to rejoin my husband. And I am resisting the idea with my whole body. And I couldn't tell them why. When I was living with my first husband, he really had me convinced I was stupid, I was ugly, nobody liked me, and I couldn't do anything. There's just no way I could function on my own. And he had me convinced. When we were separated for that time, I had to get a job and was, the world of waiting tables, and did that. And it turned out I was smart, I could be funny, and people liked me. And I really liked the feeling of that. And I could not go back to living with my husband. It was just not physically possible. I kind of agreed at one point to do it, and I got physically ill. And I was smart enough to listen to that. And we never went back. And Larry just kind of fell off the radar, wasn't interested in being a father. He got as sick as however it was he got. And I was really glad I didn't have to witness it, and really glad my son wasn't raised with it. But in the meantime, I'm in the restaurant business, and the divorce goes through, and I am single and on the loose. And hey, there's another alcoholic who shows up. This is David. He, I can just attract them. I can just pick him out of a room. It's crazy. But David actually did the best he could for several years. He cared about my son. He taught Morgan how to ride a bike. He coached him in Little League. He taught percussion in high school marching band, and my son kind of picked up drums and was part of high school marching band. So I have to say, David did the best he could for us as long as he could, but he was an active alcoholic, and the disease did what it does, and he got further and further away from us. And again, I've got my secret agenda about taking care of myself, and that meant being dishonest with money. So I had money he didn't know I had. And the rule was his money was our money and my money was my money. And we were like that. I mean, we were crazy for a while. So I raised my son with an active alcoholic who was not his father. Now, one of Larry's gifts is he's just verbose as hell and could wear you down. And at some point, he started getting really overbearing with primarily my son. And I would compromise my son's security and well-being just to shut David up. Really, just say, honey, Morgan, just go along with it. Please just do what he says. And so he'll shut up. So he'll leave me alone because I just couldn't bear it. It got to the point where Morgan would go in his room and jump out his bedroom window and run across the street and stay at his friend's house. And he told me about this. I knew that was going on, but that he escaped his way and I escaped mine. At some point, I was a stark raving bitch by the end of that marriage, because here I grew up in AA, went to Alateen, and thought I had all of the answers when I really didn't know how to apply anything that I had learned. I just wanted to look good. So by the end of that marriage, David was sleeping in a sleeping bag in the office. He lived downstairs. We had an unfinished basement where he did his work and his drinking and his smoking. And he decided he had had enough. Now, part of our deal was actually I had very good credit when David and I got married. One of the things I really tried to pay attention to, you know, keep my debt low, pay my bills. And when we got married, he had credit card issued to him from my account, and I didn't know that. He took over our bills, and I was happy to let him do that. I didn't want to be responsible for it all. I trusted him. He was going to do it all. So I trusted someone else who didn't really need to be trusted. And when he left me like $30,000 in debt. And I would love to blame it on him. But I wasn't emotionally mature. I was a child. I was childish. And so he left me in that debt. At some point, I did have to declare bankruptcy. But I can't really blame him. I didn't want to stand up to him. I didn't want to be worn down again by someone who just could bear down verbally, where I don't necessarily have a lot of skill or defense. So when he left, Morgan and I moved out of the one house and moved into another little house up in Pendleton, Indiana. And kind of trudged along. You know, we did okay. But I was divorced, and I was under 40 and still thinking I could find the right man who would take care of me and make me happy and do everything for me that I wasn't willing or able to do with myself, because I really didn't have those skills. I was terribly insecure. And, you know, the deal, if, you know, do what I can to get attention, then don't look too closely, because I don't want you to really, really see me. So in the meantime, here in Indianapolis, my dad has a group of guys, right? He started a meeting with some other friends in AA, and I moved to another restaurant. And when we were opening this new hip, cool place in downtown Indianapolis, there was this guy, and he talked the talk. He talked AA, and I knew where he was from, and he was a sober guy. So one day we were working together, and I said, you know, I grew up in this world you're talking about. He was very open about his sobriety and being a member of AA. I said, I know this world you're talking about. I actually grew up in these rooms. He says, oh yeah. I said, yeah, my dad's kind of a deal. He does a lot of speaking. He's been around quite a bit. He's got so many years. And this guy puffed up his chest and said, well, maybe I know who he is. And I dropped my dad's name, and he just shut up and started looking at me and said, oh yeah, I see it. And he had known both my parents for years. And I thought, oh, this is great. He's one of Dad's guys. He's one of my dad's guys. We're going to do great. And so, you know, there was a little back and forth and a couple of marriages to get out of. And not because those marriages fell apart on their own, not because of Craig and I, but, you know, when the time was right, we just glommed onto each other. But he was 3 years sober, and I was still really crazy. Dabbled in Al-Anon here and there, but really I was full of it. I wasn't applying the tools. I didn't know how. And so Craig and I are about a year into our relationship, and he needs me to go to Al-Anon or he has to leave. And I am so desperate to hang on to this man that I started going to Al-Anon. You know, it's cheating to get me into Al-Anon, but and we still did a lot of back and forth after I got into Al-Anon, but I'm so grateful I got in. I had to really start digging in. Now, I was still full of shit for a couple of years, and going to meetings and acting like I knew what I was talking about. And we did one big book workshop, which I led with another daughter of an alcoholic. And it was, it took forever. It was the workshop that wouldn't end. But I got to know some women and really get to know some women that I would have judged harshly just by looking at them, and got to really know who they were. And that was pretty humbling. And that was a good start for me. And so plugging along and joined another workshop with somebody who actually knew what she was doing. And it was AA Al-Anon combined women's big book study. And that's where I got an understanding of my first step for the very first time. And that was probably 3 or 4 years in. Really came to understand that I couldn't manage my thinking. Now, I don't know why I'm not an alcoholic, but I can't manage my thinking. And one of the reasons I work out of the big book is because I find myself in the book. I have everything described, except for the allergy to alcohol. I have just as sick, and I do it sober. So I really dove into working the steps. I just kind of caught on fire before it fizzled out. I was really working it, or thought I was working it anyway. In the meantime, Craig and I are plugging along, and in and out and in and out, and we're fighting a lot. We've packed our bags more than once and keep coming back together. And for my part, I was terrified a lot of the time. I wanted to stay in that relationship, and I wanted that man to love me, and I wanted that man to take care of me. But because of my lifetime of secret agendas, I couldn't be honest with him. And nothing really ticks him off more than someone not being honest with him. So it got ugly a lot until I started figuring some things out. Now, at some point, Craig came to understand that I had a problem with honesty and money. His money is our money, because he was making more, and my money was my money. And I was self-employed, so I had to have a separate business checking account. That once he figured it out, he was, again, pretty ticked off. And so I started working with my sponsor, Marie, who I said earlier, she actually was one of my Alateen sponsors in Denver many, many years ago. And called her and told her what happened. And she really taught me how to write a 4-column inventory. Before, it was just some long mess where I would cry a lot and I was a pile of poop. But the structure of the 4-column inventory really helped me see the truth. And it's really the only way I can write inventory anymore. Anything else doesn't help clarify what I need clarity with. So I came to understand what I had done wrong with my husband, and I went to make amends to him. And of course, he's still angry. And as far as he knows, I'm just talking, I'm just talking. He doesn't see any evidence of me changing. And I got down on my knees and I said, okay, God, whatever it takes, I will do it. And God is really funny that way, because the shit hit the fan. Craig had back problems off and on for years, and something had happened to his back and it bugged him. He couldn't do anything for a couple of weeks, and then he'd be back at it. And right after that prayer, his back went out and it did not come back. And it has not come back. So, we're terrified, and I am especially terrified, because that means it's all on me. And I had to buckle down. And I think that's been 10 years now, but I had to work, and scared, and had to work. And over time, things started to work themselves out. It took a couple of years for Craig to get on disability, which was helpful, because we compiled a little credit card debt trying to feed ourselves. But, there was no magic moment where it was like an aha. It was put one foot in front of the other, and keep working, and keep doing your best, and keep paying the bills. And at some point I could look up again and start looking around me and not be so afraid. Now, while a lot of this was going on, I was still trying to do the deal and write my inventory and realize I had to make some amends. Over a period of maybe a year, my three biggest amends were, my son was shipping out. He joined the first time he joined the Navy, and he was shipping out. And before he shipped out, I got to make amends to him for compromising his well-being and his security, putting his, he paid the price for me trying to take care of myself. And, he forgave me. And I got to watch him, grow up into the man he is. And we're very close, and he lives 5 minutes away. And I get to be part of his life and his family's life, and learn to shut up and let them make their own decisions, which is interesting. But it's actually, life is much easier that way. On the way out of my first two marriages, I made sure that my mothers-in-law knew that their sons were responsible for the mess. It wasn't me. These were women who loved me and treated me like a daughter. And I hurt them terribly with that. And I went back and made amends to both of them. And as a result, I got to have deep friendships with them. Even David's mom passed away last year, and I talked to her about a week before she died. We were gonna go up and say goodbye because we knew she had cancer, and we couldn't bear the idea of not seeing her one more time. But we missed her. She beat us out, and she was ready to go. My first mother-in-law is still in Denver, and if I go to Denver and I don't see that family, I'm in trouble, because they still treat me like a daughter and a sister. And those are probably the biggest gifts of making amends, that I still got to keep relationships that mean so much to me. And, I'd known Rose since I was 17 years old. So those are just tremendous gifts for me. So I have lost where I was going. David's gone. Craig's here. Craig and I, we're plugging along. Now I had a home group, and it took me a minute because I'm real picky, and I still think going through a period of time where I think I know everything. But I found a home group in Indianapolis on Monday nights, and we were doing pretty well. And I like kind of being in the thick of things. So you get there early and you set up the literature and greet people and set up the chairs, and stick around afterwards and talk to people. But I've had a history of going back and forth with how well I'm actually doing the deal, how much I'm walking the talk. So we had, I've had some ego problems to deal with in the past. I've got, I left that meeting consciously, because we had someone who was a double winner who just really couldn't stop dominating the meeting, and it didn't matter what the group thought. And since I had, the most time in that meeting, I was the one kind of trying to fix it and make it be an Al-Anon meeting, or what I thought should be an Al-Anon meeting, and nobody else really seemed interested. Like it was just a battle between this person and me. And I stuck around for the longest time because I thought, okay, what about the newcomers? Are they going to see this and think this is Al-Anon? Because it really wasn't. And at some point, I just had to take myself out. And I had a period of time. My son is in the rooms, and I was really fortunate in that I was only aware of it for a short period of time. And when I found out about it, I called my sponsor and she said, go to more meetings. So I said, oh, okay. I went to a meeting across the street from my office. I picked up a second meeting. And so I had, which is now my home group. So I stepped out of one meeting, but I had another meeting to go to. And I really like this group. It's Friday nights, 6 o'clock up in Carmel at the big, gigantic Carmel United Methodist Church. And it's a real group. They talk about the steps, they talk about recovery. And I'm really grateful to be part of that group, that I could leave one that wasn't functioning well, where I wasn't functioning well either, to a group of really healthy people. So today, really, after years of back and forth and doing this work, Craig and I are healthier than we've ever been. He's still unable to work, but he does everything he can to make my life easier. I hardly ever cook. If I were to fend for myself, it would be a hard-boiled egg and a can of tuna fish over the sink. He makes sure I eat a decent meal every night. There's a lot I don't have to think about at home, because he's doing the best he can, even though he's in pain when he does it. I'm out there working. I've got a part-time job working for my professional association, and I have a private practice. And it's work I love and people I appreciate. And I'm just feel like I'm growing up little by little, that the things that used to drive me nuts don't drive me nuts anymore. We've had a lot of unexpected expenses that include buying a new car. And where I would normally have been terrified, I'm not. We're not. Actually, as a couple, it is an interesting ride. And all I really know is that God's always available to me. If I'm not feeling God, it's because of whatever's going on with me, that I've moved away. I'm living in fear. I'm preoccupied with, my hair or my shoes, or making sure other people think I'm cool. It's just the walk I'm on. I don't think none of it has been being struck by lightning. It's been bit by bit by bit, doing the best I can, being more honest in my life with money, with my husband, with how I feel. And even if I'm afraid he's not going to like my answer, I have to still tell him the truth. And amazingly, things work out pretty well. It's life with a sober person. I think that's all I've got for now. So yeah, then I'll just start rambling. So thank you. Oh, thank you.
So much, Keri. And one of the reasons why I fell in love with Fellowship of the Spirit is that we involve Al in our participation. I learned so much from our sister program. Thank you for sharing. It's now at the point where you could call on somebody in the Hollywood Squares if you'd like. After that, we go to a show of hands.
Okay. Well, I gotta pull up two screens, so. But I don't see anybody waving.
No, you put them on the spot.
I put them on the spot?
You call them, yes.
Okay, then Katie in Akron.
Oh, well, thank you for calling on me. I don't know if the TV is going to start. My husband's around the corner with the TV there, and I don't know if he's going to start blaring it or not. But oh gosh, thank you for your share. I'm a recovering alcoholic of since '93, and over the years, I've had problems with emotional sobriety and gone to some Al-Anon meetings, you know, to see if maybe there was something there. But I don't know. Then I don't know. I feel like the alcoholics are my people or something. I don't know. So I go to Al-Anon. I'm defensive alcoholics. I don't know. It was probably, I know it was me. It was me. But I really related to you. I related to a lot of the character defects, you know, the immaturity you talked about, and the finances thing. I'm still, even I've been sober and done many inventories on money, I still struggle at times believing that everything's going to be okay. You know, my husband's very ill with Parkinson's disease, and it's a trip, this road. You know, I've been a caregiver for 26 years, and anyway, so I really love this meeting, you know, that we talk about emotional sobriety. I loved what you said about working the steps in detail in the 3rd column, 4th column. And we had a fellowship of the Spirit meeting up here. And it kind of, I don't think it's in existence anymore, I'm not sure. But it got real small. But I do love the intensity of the work on the steps and thoughts and the format that I was taught. And you also mentioned big book studies, and those are wonderful. And I've been to many, and then what's the word when you, not that you lead them, but you facilitate. Yeah. So then I've had the pleasure of facilitating some. And when you mentioned the workshop that went on forever or something like that, we did a never ending workshop. I mean, it was because we'd have one person go up on the board and do one resentment, and the room would help them with their 3rd and 4th column. And it's intense. It's like intensive therapy almost. It's all big book, but you know, just some of the truths that you learn when you're up there.
What if I forget something?
Yeah.
So anyway, but it was, I loved hearing you share. And I do love that FOTS has Al-Anon. Al-Anon was always at our workshops too, Al-Anon participants. And I could identify with so many of your things. It's just, I was a drunk on top of it, you know? So thank you. Thank you so much for sharing.
Thanks, Kate. There's a big book study I do every year, and I'm almost always the only Al-Anon in the room. Someone else facilitates, but we all take turns chairing, and you know, I'm almost always the oldest person in the room, but I got to say, I appreciate how these women show up and are serious. You know, they are honest, and I appreciate how they share, and they inspire me so much. Okay, so I got to call in somebody else next, huh? How about Dina? Or Deanna?
Hi,
Yeah.
I'm Deanna. I'm alcoholic.
Hi, Deanna.
Hi. Thank you so much for sharing your story. I can relate a lot to the picker being broken. Yeah, I met my husband in AA at a meeting, and yeah, that was the, you know, boy meets girl on AA campus. It was so unhealthy. I had 30 days, he had 90 days, and oh my God, it was scary. It took me to a place where my codependence made me sicker than my alcoholism, and I needed a drink to deal with it. And so that codependence that I had in that relationship, took me back out after 8 years of sobriety. And it took me 5 years to come back. And it nearly killed me. Being sick with this disease, whether you're an alcoholic or an Al-Anon, it is fatal. It can kill. and it almost got me. So it, I'm grateful to be here, and I love that this meeting supports listening to both Al-Anon and AA. It's important to know that this is a family disease, and it affects everyone that touches the alcoholic's life. And it's looking at, I spent 2 years in Al-Anon after that relationship, really working with a sponsor, working with, going through the steps in Al-Anon with an Al-Anon sponsor. And it really helped me to understand my alcoholism better. It helped me to understand myself, and truly, they say in AA, we have to get down to causes and conditions. And I think Al-Anon helped me get there. And I'm continuing to grow in that and learn more about myself in that area. But thank you again for coming and sharing your story. And I'll pass.
Thanks, Dina. How about Maggie? Maggie O.
Hey, thank you. Thank you, Keri. That was wonderful. I'm an alcoholic, and I'm also a member of Al-Anon. And I actually wanted to raise my hand and ask you a question, actually, because I started out in Al-Anon. I was there in Al-Anon for somebody else for 6 years before I realized I was an alcoholic. And once I got into AA, I didn't go to Al-Anon for 4 years while I was really focusing on the steps in Alcoholics Anonymous. But I hit a point where I needed both programs again. I'm completely surrounded. I love alcoholics. I'm around alcoholics day and night and day and night. And it really helps me to have both programs. But one thing that I really struggled with my entire life was making people, and for me, especially men, my higher power. I mean, that is exactly what I did, relationship after relationship, until I got into Al-Anon, but it's still a bit of a struggle. And I mean, I've been married for years, so it's not like it used to play out, but I wanted to ask you, can you share a little bit about your journey with your higher power? Like what has that been like, especially if you're anything like me, where I attached that power to a human and then demanded that they take care of me as if they're supposed to be God, if you know what I mean. And I would just love to hear what your journey's been like with God or higher power. And thank you again for sharing tonight.
Thanks, Maggie. It's been, and it's still a journey. It's still unfolding. As a teenager in Alateen, it was, the third step, made a decision to turn my will and my life, and I'm going, but that doesn't mean I have to do this now, because I don't want anybody to be the boss of me. And that was I don't know, I hung my hat on that for a long time. And having an understanding of God is changing. I think that was part of my problem. Is initially my understanding of God was either aloof and didn't really care about little old me, or God was going to punish me. I didn't have a concept of a God that loved me just as I am, no matter what I did, that God still loves me, and to learn to rely on that. And it's still, it's not the challenge it used to be, but I think that's practice, meditation, living life, and trying to be aware of how much God does take care of me, and how much working the steps and allowing God to change my fear, being willing to just let God change my heart, my fear, my perspective. And I turn around and see that my heart and my fear and my perspective have been changed. And it's not because of anything I was able to do. My view of life is softer now. It's gentler than it used to be. I was ready to fight anybody. And I lived resentfully, just looking for trouble, looking for a fight. Little gnawing things in the back of my head. And the more I put myself in a position to let God change me, I'm changed. And so that's how my relationship with my higher power just continues to evolve. I try to, growing up, we did the Christian Wheel of Fortune, which my mom cringed, but we did, we did. And, I saw some bad behavior. And again, because somebody who's supposed to have authority over me is telling me the way I should believe, I wasn't having it. So I have resentment when it comes to religion. Not necessarily interested. And I know people find comfort in their religion and friendships and fellowships, and all of that is wonderful. I never really found that. And I don't know how much of that was me and my expectations and feeling like I, still had to know everything and be the authority. I might feel differently if I went to church now, but I don't feel drawn to it. But now, I might have an obsessive thought, or, somebody who has irritated me in the past, and I those tapes start playing again because I let them, right? Something comes up and I'm off and running, and it's like, oh wait, no, God, I need you to please make this stop. I'm going to pay attention to this, and you take care of the brain, and it happens. It's quiet. It's not a big booming voice. It's just, it's a quiet, calm, comforting presence that I feel. And thanks to my dad, I start getting emails from Richard Roy and the Center for Action and Contemplation that I think is in Albuquerque. And I read those every morning before my meditation. It always gives me something to think about. And one of the things I read today was just, it stopped my breath, is that, even as bad as we get, the only thing God knows how to do with us is to love us more. It's like, okay. And if my job is to live like that, then my job is to love more. And that's just kind of where it is right now. Okay. So Liz W.
Hey everybody, my name's Liz. I am an alcoholic. Grateful
Hi,
to be
Liz.
here, grateful to be sober. I found Alcoholics Anonymous through Al-Anon. I've been sober for almost 30 years, and so it was early 1993 when my first husband had taken his own life due to his alcoholism, and I was a complete wreck for the next couple of years. And I said to my mother-in-law, she had been in Al-Anon for years, and I said, everybody around me drinks. I don't know what's happening. And she said, well, you need to go to Al-Anon. And she knew that I drank crazy, and I was just like her son. And so it was because of her that I went to Al-Anon. And I couldn't believe they told me not to drink there. I'm like, what do you mean? I don't have the problem. It's everybody around me. And then that's when I realized that it really was me who also had the problem. And this is where I needed to be. And it took me some time and whatnot, but, and then I married another drunk, and we're still married. And, and it's been a challenge over the years. It's never easy to have two alcoholics married to each other. But I think because we both have a program, I've never, ever left Alcoholics Anonymous. I have stayed going to meetings, working the steps, doing whatever I needed to do through the years, through moves and changes, and watching my kid grow up and my kid deal with his own problems and whatnot. He's in Denver, actually. I'm in Florida. And, I think that's what, has helped, is the fact that I've always had a program. I've always had a sponsor. I've always gone to meetings. I've always done what I needed to do to keep myself sane. Now, I'm not always sane, and life is not always a ball of roses. And my husband's in the hospital tonight, and he's been sick for 10 years, and life is crazy, but I know that no matter what, I'm going to stay sober, because it's the only way for me to get through anything, is to stay sober and to stay here. So I thank you for your share. It was very good to hear you and hear you talk about all the different challenges that you've had, and bankruptcy and things like that. We probably should have declared bankruptcy 10 years ago, but we didn't. And, but things are starting to look up for us. So who knows? Life just moves along. You do what you have to do. So thanks so much for your share tonight.
Thanks, Liz. Okay, let's see. Who else is out there? How about Aaron Treese?
Hey, thank you, Keri. Thanks for your share and for calling on me. I am an alcoholic. My name's Aaron. I come from a family of alcoholics. So like a lot of shares I just heard before me, I started out exploring Al-Anon before I made it into AA. I really liked in your share that you read the big book and you relate to everything except for the allergy to alcohol. And that's what this meeting is about, right? Emotional sobriety. And, the disease centers in our mind. So I guess I'm a double winner. I'm focusing on my alcoholism now and just working the steps with a sponsor in AA. But I so relate to your shares with regards to dishonesty and finances. And I've got a terrible picker. I was just on a vacation in Costa Rica, and the loudest drunk in the room is the one that I ended up spending my time with. But also, I really enjoyed in your story the part about making amends, when you got to the part about your amends, and how sweet it is. Relationships of 17 years or lifelong relationships that blossom and return and just grow sweeter than ever. And I'm experiencing that now. I'm making a second pass through the 12 steps. I'm on my 10th step, but still making some amends. And I'm reaping the benefits now of listening to really good sponsorship and taking those directions. And, I want to jump right ahead to my 11th step and start doing my homework. And it's like, nope, that's not where I am right now. I'm still in my 10th step experience, but I'm just seeing the beauty of a relationship with my daughter that had been estranged, with my mother, who I couldn't stand to be in the same room with her and wish that she was just not on the planet any longer. Now I have sweet hour-long conversations on the phone that are just beautiful. My dad called me just last night. He's 81 years old, 41 years sober, but he was never sponsored and never really read the big book or worked the steps. And because of our sweet conversations in my little 3 years of sobriety, he wants to get a sponsor now, 81 years old. He wants to be sponsored and he wants to read the big book and to work the steps. So, it's just a beautiful journey. And I really appreciate you taking your time and coming to us from Indianapolis. I bet it's cold there. And I think I'll go ahead and end with that. Thanks for calling on me. Good night.
Thanks, Aaron. Kenda B. Do we get to see you? Maybe not. Okay.
We
Uh,
also can go to a show of hands if you're running out of people to call. on.
yeah, that would be great.
I just have a question for you. You
Okay.
talked about every time you see the word alcohol in the big book, you substitute it with thinking. The first person I heard, and actually it was the first time I heard an Al-Anon speak at a FOTS meeting, was Juanita, and that's exactly what she did. And
Yeah.
I started telling everybody, Juanita's a black belt Al-Anon, and she knows the big book better than most alcoholics.
Yes, she is, and yes, she does.
Could you elaborate on that thinking part?
Um, I did all my crazy stuff, stark raving sober. And that's because of my thinking got skewed as a child. I adore my parents, and I'm so grateful I still get to have them in my life, and I see them about every week. But it was nuts in our house. And 3 little girls trying to navigate staying safe with people that we knew loved us and that we loved, but our world wasn't safe. There was a lot of screaming and yelling, and a lot of insecurity, and a lot of financial insecurity for many years. And then, Dad told me this years ago, he said, honey, you couldn't have escaped this. It all lands on the kids and runs downhill. And so, I was the oldest, and then I was a mean big sister. I picked on both my little sisters. It's like we were trying to get to the top of the pile and survive. And we each had different strategies. I became a chameleon. I'm trying to please everybody. And my second sister, she's the one who can make friends with anybody. And my youngest sister just seemed to be born pissed off, and we're all trying to do the best we can and love each other. But it was really hard, and it's taken us a lot of years to try to see each other and love each other just as we are. But I saw through a lens of fear, and so my actions were based in fear and self-centered fear. I'm trying to get what I think I need, and what I think I need. I have married 3 alcoholics. What I think I need isn't necessarily the actual thing I need. So much of my behavior and my thinking was based in crazy and in fear. And, there's just not enough materially to make me feel good enough. There's not enough to make me feel safe. But that's not how I live today. I mean, I have pockets of it. If I have to go on a shopping spree, it's at Goodwill. But even then, right now, I had to buy a new car, so I won't be going to Goodwill for a while. But it doesn't, I'm not terrified like I used to be. And that's the part that's just really wonderful. But the craziness was based in fear and trying to get, again, God, I'm just a broken record now, trying to get what I thought I needed to be safe. And that's how my insanity looked.
Okay, Veronica, you're up.
Thank you. Hang on a minute. I'm just going to find. Oh, there you are, Keri. Hi, everyone. My name is Veronica, and I am an alcoholic. Keri, I've heard a number of Al-Anons in the last 3 years. I've been coming to this meeting online, and it just occurred to me tonight. I relate to the stories and the people who are alcoholics, but I feel the pain in the Al-Anon stories, in the Al-Anon shares. And I grew up in an alcoholic family. So, I have this little joke with myself. I don't tell anyone, but I say, I'm an alcoholic with an Al-Anon rising. And I don't know when I just, I feel like one program at a time, one program at a time, but I related to everything that you said. It really touched my heart. My sponsor got me to do a very powerful exercise, and I don't even think that I saw the depth of my alcoholism until she got me to do this. And it was up to page, I don't know, from page 10 or 15, something up to page 44. And everywhere where it said alcohol or alcoholism or alcoholic, I would put in insane self-manager. Every time I wanted to pick up a drink, wanted to, to pick up a task or wanted to pick up a project. And I tell you what, it was just still to this day, the most powerful exercise I've done. I go back and I read those chapters with insane self-management in there, insane self-manager, managing, tasking, organizing, all of those things. It's just, I don't know what to do. I had to, I do smile when I listen to the stories of, relationships. And the reason I'm smiling is I'm having a little laugh at myself. I'd meet someone and I'd go, and invariably I'd find out down the track, that we've got so much in common. We've both got parents who are alcoholics, or one of us, or there's been some sort of similar drama. And I used to think it was the universe conspiring and these two souls that met, and it's kismet, and we're just never ever once occurred to me that there's a whole bag, in fact 2 bags of illness in there. But that is what I thought that connection was. And so yeah, I've got that radar too. And it's, it shows up in different ways. It's really sneaky. It's even when I try to apply a different selection criteria, man, it still comes up. It's just unbelievable. So look, anyway, that's really what I wanted to share. It's and just say thank you very much. Always love hearing Al-Anons. I guess I better get in the, I don't know when I start that, but anyway, it's thank you. Thanks for listening.
Thanks, Veronica. Hi,
Patty,
Patty.
Hi there, I'm Patty H. I might have some background noise here, I apologize, but I'm also an Al-Anon, and I did the steps through the big book on 10, 11, 12. I just started sponsoring people. I've only been in the program since 2021, and my sponsor referred me to this meeting here. And I just want to say that, I really loved your share, and I love this meeting because I do think it's very inclusive of everybody, no matter where they're at in the program. And I go to also a big book study. What we study the stories. So we read the stories, and it's all from the Al-Anon perspective. And it's really interesting how I can relate my experiences to the alcoholic, because as you had stated, there's experiences without the phenomena of craving, for the alcohol. And I have all the isms of alcoholics, and I am surrounded by alcoholics and addicts just throughout my family, because I'm an adult child of an adult child. Both grandfathers were alcoholics. And so the family disease is running prevalent. So I think it's so important to have these meetings like this where we're all included, and we all share experiences, and and they're relatable, and they might not be exact, but yeah, I just really appreciate your share, and I appreciate this meeting. Thanks for letting me share.
Thanks, Patty.
Sam, you're unusually quiet. I thought maybe you'd have a few words to share.
What's up, Joel? How you guys doing? Sam, alcoholic. Keri, what a beautiful share. I'm 41. I'm 41. I'm on marriage number 3. All 3 of them have been alcoholics. I have been sober for 23 years. And, I think that I heard a guy that I respected in AA a long time ago talk about how, AA's, he was just kind of saying it in a derogatory sense that AAs, who go to Al-Anon not being fair to the Al-Anon people, and there's more work to be done in AA and whatever. And so I was a closet case Al-Anon after my second divorce. I think I somehow felt like it might be a little less masculine for me to be an Al-Anon, but I tell you, both my parents were alcoholics. My parents were alcoholics. Both my grandfathers were alcoholics. I mean, my grandfather went to AA in the 1950s. Another one died from alcoholism. The characteristics of alcoholism are all over every relationship in my life. And I first felt at home. I grew up in the smoky rooms of AA back when people used to smoke and go into speaker meetings. And my heroes were some of those guys, like I wanted to be like my dad when I grew up, and he was an alcoholic. And I've been to treatment with different family members coinciding on accident, like we both just ended up at the same treatment center before, so at my house, it's all over the place. It's like Walking Dead with alcoholics, the show Walking Dead with alcoholics, like one person gets bit and half the house has it. It's just everybody fucking alcoholics falling out of the ceilings, excuse my French. So, for me, I could really, I got sober when I was young because I saw how bad the compulsion was. And by the time I was 18, I'd caused so much problems. I had dropped out of high school. I had been into 2 rehabs, 3 mental hospitals, and I had knocked up a girl I met in a rehabilitation school. And she was pregnant. And just about everything in my life was messed up. And, slowly, somehow, as I got sober and life started to get better, and I started to find that I could be successful at certain things, and I could make money at certain things, and I could do these certain things. Like, I think I lived my whole 20s trying to impress my dad and, making a mess in weird relationships, and I remember I was 32 or 33, and I've been sober for a long time. And the second alcoholic wife, that marriage had just fallen apart. And it's like, I didn't think she was an alcoholic when I met her. I'd hoped she wasn't, like I didn't mean for that to happen. But this total alcoholic, whole family of alcoholics. And I remember I had that, I'd asked Tom to start sponsoring me and working the steps with me. And we had that time where he did that old Clint Hodges line, like, what are 5 things you've been unwilling to give up for a better relationship with God? And I had made a disaster out of my life sober with all of it, right? It didn't matter how much money I made. I was in more debt than I'd ever made. I was making a couple $100,000 a year and $100,000 worth of debt when I was, 29 or 30. I had my second marriage to my second soulmate. I'd had, when you have that moment, like you think, God, man. I remember my second wife, we met a couple different times around town. And I remember the first time I saw her, I said, that is the most fantastic woman I've ever seen. That's my soulmate. If I had a woman like that, I'd marry her in a heartbeat, and 4 years later, I had the worst relationship. We were married, had a kid, like, it's almost like the getting everything you want and then wanting to jump off a bridge with it. Right. And she, wanted a divorce and, was having some affairs and stuff. And, the novelty of the relationship and the validation wore off. And then the real part of a relationship came about, and we really didn't have anything to whatever. But Tom asked me these things, what are a few things you've been unwilling to give up for a better relationship with God? And it was money, my sex life, approval, my kids, and a couple other things. And I remember I just put them all on the altar that next day. I met him in the morning. I said, there's not one of these things I feel like I can manage better than God could. And I'm going to go all in on the idea that God's everything or else he's nothing. And I pushed all those things in and went through, like you said, the rest of the 4-column inventory is such a healing process. And to make those amends, to sit down with my second ex-wife, and make like these powerful amends where we both said we loved each other. And, we moved on as co-parents, and, we're both remarried, and she has another child. We came to the hospital when her child was born. And, the program of Alcoholics Anonymous and Al-Anon has given me is the conduit for any kind of sanity that I could have ever wished for. And, you know, I live a very peaceful, joyous life today. And one of the awesome facets about it is I get to listen to people like you, and that little center glow thing in my heart and in my head start to glow when people who share, like I resonate with what they say. And it was going off all night with you, you know, just kind of like I feel that warmth and I feel that connectivity, and something in my soul just says, yeah, that person, I totally get what they're saying. And, you know, this is where I belong. And I don't care if people know that I'm a closet case Al-Anon as well as an alcoholic. You know, the alcoholic thing, either one of them are pretty cool as far as I know. So that's all I got. Thanks.
I'm going to chime in a little bit. Sam, I joined Al-Anon when I was about 5 years sober. I was dating this woman that, anyway, the relationship went sour. It went south. You know, she would promise to be faithful to me, and I discovered she was sleeping around. And I tried to break up with her, and I couldn't. I went through withdrawal. I found I was addicted to this woman. And I was sharing in AA meetings, and people were saying, be a man, this, that, and the other thing. But somebody said, why don't you check out Al-Anon? So I had to find a meeting that I'd feel comfortable in. It was called Double Winners for alcoholics as well. So I go there, and within 15 minutes, I realized my mother's an alcoholic. From what somebody else was sharing, I divorced an alcoholic. You know, I belong here. So I got an Al-Anon sponsor. She was great. We did something called the Blueprint for Progress for the 4th step. Almost drive me nuts. The thing I didn't like was that they didn't want to hear anything about AA literature. They said, we got our own literature, we're separate programs. And there was this thing going on. So I know I wouldn't talk AA when I was in Al-Anon. When I moved to Brooklyn, the AA groups would call the Al-Anon people our ladies of perpetual revenge. That's what they named them. And when I was in the Al-Anon meetings, they would say stuff like, detach with love, not with an axe. But when I was asked to share, because I was with one AA person, and it turned out that they loved it, they didn't understand the doctor's opinion. When I went to the Al-Anon Share Day and I explained the disease of alcoholism, the phenomena of craving, you know, the obsession of the mind and the spiritual malady, they just kept asking me to come back and do that every year. My take on this disease, living with an alcoholic, is catchy. This spiritual malady is catchy. This is just my opinion. Let me know if I'm wrong, whatever it is. I think people living with an alcoholic catch it. And I think what I caught from my mother for the Al-Anon side was this obsession with trying to change someone else's behavior. And I think that's the disease of Al-Anon, this obsession of someone else. What I learned in Al-Anon was the alcoholic has his hands around the bottle, and the Al-Anon has their hands around the neck of the alcoholic. Anyhow, Sam, you're not alone. You know, Al-Anon has helped me so much, especially in this area of emotional sobriety. Any other show of hands? Dennis? Oh, Twyla.
Thank you. My name's Twyla. I'm an alcoholic. And I know I was late. And I really appreciate this meeting a lot. And thank you, Keri. I'm so glad we recorded this so I get to hear you, because it sounds like it was a phenomenal share. And the reason I'm jumping in here is because today, I mean, since my husband passed away or got called up at the beginning of December, some of my family members have just been, well, for me, really different than the way I was raised. And so I remember the very first time I went to an Al-Anon meeting, and it was at one of those FOTS conferences. And I've tell you what, I felt as much at home there as I did in my very first meeting of AA. Now, I am an alcoholic, and I'm also an Al-Anon. And thank you, God, for both. So I kind of wrote off my family. Like in the last couple of months, I just deleted, in fact, I deleted my whole phone. And recently, I mean, today I was in an Al-Anon meeting that just was full of love, full of positivity. I got out of that meeting, I was like, oh man, I am so uplifted. Thank you, God. And so I guess the reason I wanted to share is just that I am so grateful for both. And both of my sponsors previously did both. They did not ever say, Twyla, we think you should do XYZ. We think you should go to Al-Anon because I do. But you know what? Like I said, the first time I was in that Al-Anon meeting and every time since, I have felt just as home. So I'm very, very grateful. Thank you, Keri. I'm looking forward to hearing the recording. And thanks everyone for this meeting. I'm so grateful. Thank you.
You're muted, Joel. Hey, Joel, you're on mute.
Oh, it's Dennis, you're next.
Yeah.
Try and keep
Sure.
it short though, because we're getting close to the end.
I will. My name's Dennis Alcoholic. I'm also a double winner. And of course, I've done the steps in Al-Anon with a sponsor. I actually am a triple winner and I've done the steps with 3 programs with the sponsor. And I sponsor people in 3 different programs. Great talk. It's wonderful to hear the Al-Anon perspective on things. One of the most amazing things is to read the chapter to the wives in the big book, and then of course read or hear Lois's story from the Al-Anon book, and slightly different perspective there, guys. But I'm just grateful that the program's there on, and I just wanted to say an Al-Anon or an alcoholic can no longer, cannot keep themselves from encountering other addicts and alcoholics any more than you can try and hold 2 magnets apart. It's like that completion of the octet that they used to teach us about in chemistry. One fulfills the other no matter how damn broken they are. And it's like you could try and stop a bird from migrating, but it's still going to migrate. And that's what it is with alcoholics and Al-Anons and along those lines, till you see the patterns. They say in psychology, ontogeny recapitulates phylogeny. The apple doesn't fall too far from the tree. Multi-generations of this stuff. It's not going to stop overnight. Thank God for the steps. Thanks for your talk. Thanks for letting me share.
Okay, we've come to the point in our meeting where we go inside our inner room, say a prayer, meditate, whatever, for about 90 seconds or so.